Welcome to the Third House Podcast. I'm Erica, your host, and together we'll unravel the astrological and psychological tapestry that shapes our lives. Join me as we navigate the threads that connect our chart to our emotions, relationships, and inner world. Get ready for illuminating conversation and insight, because self-discovery has no bounds. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your 2025 year ahead astrological podcast. I will be doing month by month. There will be chapters, so you can easily jump back to each month. However, please listen through to the end because I will be concluding with some general notes and also some perspective on 2026. So in my opinion, I think 2025 into 2026 is really shifting us into sort of a new chapter, a new wave, sort of like 2020 did, but obviously in a very different way. So definitely listen through to the end so that you can sort of wrap up and gain that perspective of what 2025 might be really gearing you up for into 2026. So again, this is not conclusive. I do not include every transit. If you want something more detailed that you can have with you on your device or your phone, I do have a very lengthy, I believe it's about 39 pages, about 60 transits completely broken down with advice based on each rising sign, available on my website. The link is in the description below for that. So if you want to grab that guide first, download it to your device, and then listen through this podcast episode to add additional notes about, anything that comes up for you, please do so. If not, I would definitely take notes regardless, because I do go through a lot of key dates, things to look out for, preparatory shadow type periods, that will definitely help prep you before the actual transit happens. But again, this is not conclusive, so please refer to your own chart, your own placements. And as always, I do offer one-on-one sessions for those that really want to go in depth or just need some help or perspective along the way that's very specific to your fingerprint, your birth chart. And the link is in the description below for that. And lastly, my last announcement, I will be increasing my prices, not drastically, but as we go into the new year, as I'm increasing my workload, I am going to increase my prices. So just be aware of that. Please subscribe and come back each month, especially if you're new here. Every month, I provide a lot of supplemental content, monthly horoscopes that break down the transits in more detail along the way. So again, definitely grab your 2025 yearly guide, which goes into a lot more detail as we go through this, or just grab your notes, get ready, buckle up. And again, don't forget to listen through to the end to really take all of this information and apply it to sort of what you might be gearing up for into 2026. Hello, Gemini rising. So January 2025, I'm going to start the year off on January 6th, 2025, when Mars actually will retrograde back into your Cancer second house of earned income and self-worth. Now, you've kind of already been in this rodeo, but with Mars retrograding back into your second house of earned income, it could be bringing you back to revising anything around finances, self-worth, and sort of, because we're talking about Mars, very much about your action around it. So it could be bringing you back to revising any of those themes that was coming up roughly around the end of October, beginning of November 2024. So This is why I like to get this stuff out early. So if you're listening to this in 2024, just know what is kind of going on October, November of 2024, because you could be coming back around to it, specifically around finances, your value, your self-worth. Now, more specifically, Mars rules your 11th house of social network and long-term goals, and it also rules your 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So there is some overlapping themes with some work, some side businesses or other ventures maybe. But in particular, when I'm seeing second house, 11th house, and sixth house themes, I'm really looking at what's going on financially regarding sort of your daily work and your long-term goals. But definitely pay attention to who you surround yourself with, your health, your routines, and your self-worth. Now, on January 13th, 2025, we're getting into that full moon in Cancer. So again, this full moon in Cancer at 24 degrees is really going to illuminate your Cancer second house of earned income and self-worth. So these themes are additionally being illuminated. But more specifically, this full moon in Cancer at 24 degrees will be around or conjunct this Mars retrograde at 27 degrees that I just sort of explained. So this tells me that something's being illuminated, something is culminating around maybe your finances, your material possessions, and or your self-worth that is still in this revisionary period regarding Mars, kind of tying in who you surround yourself with, your long-term goals, and any daily work. January 27th, 2025, Venus is going to enter shadow. Now, Venus is going to actually be in shadow from January 27th, 2025 through February 28th, 2025. So we've got a ways to go. But again, as we're getting into 2025, the first couple of months of 2025 are very interesting because, again, I'll explain it through the months, but it's this very opportunistic time for us to really revise. All these personal planets are going retrograde and again tying in, they rule other areas of our chart. So we have Mars retrograde, we have Venus going retrograde, we have Mars going retrograde, and Venus and Mercury are going to go retrograde and then go direct and go conjunct the North Node. So this is very much overall life direction. So I do feel overall the first couple months of 2025 are really sort of, trying to align us to where we want to go, what we want to do, depending on what area it's happening. And for you, it's really going to start tying in the themes of career and public recognition. So January 27th, again, Venus is going to enter shadow through the end of February. Venus rules at 12th house of your subconscious, sort of your life visions, what's going on mentally, and it also rules your 5th house of creativity and self-expression. But it's going to be tying in themes to that 10th house of career and public recognition. So what's going on mentally? What's going on maybe with limiting beliefs? What's going on with, how you want to be creative or more, add more self-expression to your career and your public recognition? Again, I'll get into more of those details, and I'm still going to do the monthlies where I get into even more detail. So stay tuned for that. But we're really ending the month with this new moon in Aquarius at 9 degrees on January 29th, 2025. So this new moon in Aquarius at 9 degrees, look to see if you have anything around 9 degrees. Some of you actually might have your midheaven in Aquarius, which is going to tie in additional career and public recognition themes. But this is really a new beginning regarding those 9th house themes of any travel. Maybe some of you travel for work, any higher education, continuing education, spirituality. This is really your knowledge, your beliefs, and any travel or publishing. If you're writing, I put that in this house. So really just new beginning, new chapter, playing out over the next 5-6 months that could tie in some of those themes. Now, February is when things really start to kick up. February 1st, we're really kicking off that month where Venus in Pisces. So Venus is going to be in your Pisces 10th house of career and public recognition. And Venus is actually going to be conjunct the North Node at 28 degrees Pisces. This is an important time to kind of see what really comes up, because the North Node has entered your 10th house of career and public recognition. So this is a point of increase. This could be a point of desire or overall focus, especially over the next year or two, specifically in the area of career and public recognition. But this is where Venus is going, again, Venus is in shadow, but Venus is going to start really tying in the themes of what's going on mentally, what's your overall life vision. If you have limiting beliefs, where's your self-expression, kind of tying into the themes of career, business, public recognition. Now, again, like I said, Venus is in shadow. So pay very close attention to this area as Venus really amps up the story in the area of career and public recognition. She's going to go retrograde, and you're going to probably come back around to this, but note what happens around this time, because Venus is going to go retrograde and meet with this North Node in your 10th house of career and public recognition again. But actually, Venus is going to meet the North Node here at Venus's most exalted degree. So Venus is exalted in Pisces. This is why I'm adding an element of, urgency or importance to this, because when a planet is exalted, a planet has a lot of resources. It adds a level of strength. But these planets have their area of exaltation, but they also have the most exalted degree. And when Venus goes retrograde and meets the North Node in a very visible house for Gemini risings, Venus will be at the most exalted degree. So this is adding an additional layer of strength and exaltation to the situation playing out regarding career, business, and public recognition. So we'll get into that April 1st when that happens. So we'll get to that when we get to April. But February 7th, 2025, Neptune goes conjunct the North Node in Pisces, 10th house of career and public recognition at 28 degrees. So I actually think this could be tying in a potential cycle that, maybe started to play out in 2016. So think back to 2016, when the South Node was conjunct Neptune in Pisces, where many of you might have seen some change, some releasing, some letting go. And now Neptune is with the North Node, which is the point of increase, desire, direction regarding career. So I know someone personally where they are a Gemini rising. And back in 2016, they completed their education. And now it's sort of they're moving into this full circle moment where this North Node is coming, entering their 10th house of career and public recognition. And you can definitely see the themes of career increasing in their life compared to the last time where the South Node, it was sort of a release, a let go, and graduating and finishing school and letting go of that process and starting the journey of moving towards building that career. Now, on February 12th, 2025, there will be a full moon in Leo at 24 degrees. This full moon, I'm not going to mention every new moon and full moon throughout the year, but I think this full moon is worth mentioning on February 12th. Because it's going to form a T-square with Mercury and Uranus. So Mercury and Uranus, I know whenever Mercury and Uranus kind of join or especially create squares, especially T squares, where there's two squares going on, it can increase the nervous system. It can make us a little bit more irritated, a little bit more anxious. So just be aware of that if you are prone to that. However, this full moon is really illuminating sort of your immediate environment, your communication, your siblings, your neighborhood. The third house is where you run errands, take care of your paperwork, your appointments, that kind of stuff. So life could just get a little bit busy in terms of taking care of things that just need to be taken care of, and that might cause some irritability or some sense of urgency with the T square on a very basic level. Um, but the T square looks like it is going to tie in themes with your, these are travel houses. So if you travel, I would pay attention to that. If you have things going on with siblings, anything with communication fields, this could definitely highlight or increase that activity. And because it is sort of involving your 12th house as well, I would pay attention to sleep or any sort of racing thoughts or monkey mind briefly. I mean, we're talking about a moon. The moon moves very quickly, so that you might feel this over a day or two, max, in my opinion. Now, on February 23rd, 2025, Mars finally goes direct at 17 degrees Cancer. I think this is going to be very welcomed by many of us, but you particularly, Gemini risings, because it's involving a money house. Well, really, money houses. So this Mars going direct at 17 degrees, again, you've had a long time to review and revise anything around finances, self-worth, your goals, your network, your sort of 9 to 5, your coworkers, your daily routines, even your health. So really sort of like some of you might have been really contemplating and revising your actions regarding, yes, your finances, but sort of how can you really set yourself up for success, particularly because that North Node is is in your 10th house of career and public recognition. So I think a lot of you are going to be revising sort of the money you want to make, your worth, your value, the environment you want to work in. How can you balance your health and taking care of yourself, but also, aligning yourself to the right people and those long-term goals as well. So now Mars goes direct and starts to give you the green light, particularly in the area of finances and self-worth and your goals. So a lot of you, if you are in this revisionary period for a while, you might start to see things moving ahead and progressing, with whatever story sort of played out around this time. Okay, so March, in my opinion, is when things seem to really heat up. This is when we have the eclipses. We have Mercury, a ruling planet, going retrograde. We have, Neptune entering Aries. This is, 2025 is an important year, in addition to all these planets going retrograde and conjunct the North Node in your 10th house of career. But we also have a lot of outer planets shifting into new signs and new territory, which usually almost always indicates we're really shifting into a new paradigm, a new way of living, collectively and individually. So March 1st, 2025, Mercury goes conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 27 degrees. Again, I'm like a broken record throughout 2025. I'm going to be talking a lot about career and public recognition. So March 1st, Mercury goes conjunct the North Node in that 10th house of career and public recognition. But again, it's sort of like Mercury, your ruling planet, rules you, your body, also rules your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate, goes conjunct the North Node in that 10th house of career. So it's this point of increase. You could see a lot of increasing themes around What's going on with career, what's going on with you, what's going on with home, family. This is angular, so it's the four major areas of life being affected, including relationships, partnerships, if that's applicable. However, Mercury enters shadow on March 1st. So it's sort of like something increases, something happens, but Mercury enters shadow. So it's giving us those contextual clues, but it's not necessarily the whole story for many of us. Mercury entering shadow is basically like whatever's coming up, we're going to probably go back over it again and have a new perspective or a new plan. So for you, it could involve the themes of you, home, family, property, real estate, career, and especially if you have placements in that seventh house of partnership, it could involve partnership as well. And then additionally on March 1st, Venus finally goes retrograde. So Mercury is going to be in shadow from March 1st through March 14th. So March 1st through March 14th, pay attention to what comes up, specifically around you, home, family, property, real estate, regarding something going on with career that you are going to go back over after March 14th. Additionally, on March 1st, Venus goes retrograde, starting that revisionary period of what potentially played out from the end of January through the last day of February. So we're entering this really, we're going back over things regarding, your creativity, your self-expression, what's going on mentally, what's your overall life vision, where are some of you maybe limiting yourselves. So Venus goes retrograde, bringing that up. Mercury enters shadow, isn't quite retrograde yet, but you're still kind of looking at you, your identity, how you show up in the world, your living situation, something playing out with home, family, property, real estate. And then on March 14th, 2025, there will be a full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo at 23 degrees. This is a full moon lunar eclipse in your Virgo fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. This is angular, so yes, I would wholeheartedly pay attention to what's going on with maybe a move, maybe a relocation, a renovation, a situation coming up with home and family that is really culminating or illuminating. However, when we're talking about an angular house, it's squaring your first house of self, your seventh house of partnership, and opposing your 10th house of career. So, yes, I think people get very hyper fixated on the eclipse being in that fourth house of home and family. So, definitely pay attention to those themes. But it is causing changes to you, partnership, and it's requiring some major balance between where you live versus your career and your public recognition. So especially if you have placements in Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces, that's heavily going to weigh into the story. Now, again, March 14th, full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. And remember what I said, Mercury is in shadow, still technically in shadow, about to go retrograde the following day that this eclipse happens. So it's sort of like there's something culminating and happening and shifting and causing some change. Really the first half of March, even though this eclipse happens on the 14th, eclipses can cause things to shift and change, roughly 2 weeks before it actually happens. So really the first half of March, pay attention to any major moving parts or shifting parts, especially Gemini risings, because this is angular and affecting the four major areas of your chart and thus your life. But what's very peculiar to me is that this eclipse is happening and really culminating something and shifting and causing some change. But the ruler of the eclipse, Mercury, goes retrograde the following day at 9 degrees Aries. And this is your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So it seems like something is shifting and culminating around a major area of your life where you're going to enter a revisionary period regarding sort of who you want to surround yourself with, your groups, your social network, and your long-term goals. And maybe, where you need to live for it, what's the living environment you need, what's really in alignment to your identity and how you want to show up in the world. So if I'm being completely honest, it looks like for Gemini risings, a lot is starting to shift, in my opinion, more externally, whereas the past couple years, many of you have probably experienced a lot of frustration or internal work and internal shifts. And now for Gemini rising, I think in 2025, things are really starting to kind of either manifest or move externally in the world, which I think a lot of you are very ready for after the past couple years. But then where we have one eclipse, we have the other, right? They come in pairs. And so, again, Mercury goes retrograde. You're still in this revisionary process despite some shifts and changes. But on March 29th, 2025, there will be a new moon partial solar eclipse in Aries at 9 degrees. Now, remember, after that full moon lunar eclipse, Mercury went retrograde at 9 degrees Aries. And then a few weeks later, on March 29th, there will be a new moon. So a new beginning, a very strong new beginning in Aries at 9 degrees. So these are happening at the same degrees. And I think, in my opinion, that's significant. So where you're reviewing and revising in the areas of long-term goals, friends, groups, communities, it looks like you're really closing out March. Again, Mercury is still retrograde, so you're probably still going to be sort of tying up loose ends, gaining new perspectives. But all in all, I think you're going to move into the end of March, probably in a state where you're really ready to create a new chapter or a new beginning around sort of your social networks, friends, groups, communities, long-term goals, while you're still in a little bit of a blip of reviewing and revising. Okay, how is this new beginning or this new chapter that I really want to kind of move forward going to support me, my body, my appearance, how I want to show up in the world, and how is it most importantly going to support the foundation of my life, where I live, who I live with, what is my home, how is my home supporting me, my career, or, who, what, where, when, why, foundationally, right? That is going to support sort of the relationships with my family, the people that I live with, et cetera, et cetera. So very, very interesting for Gemini risings with the nodes and the eclipses shifting into your 10th house of career and your 4th house of home and family, and consequently going to make some squares and thus change to you and partnerships, whether it's personal or professional, over the next couple years, which again, I think some of you are welcoming after a very sort of internal struggle or a lot of my Gemini rising clients, I'm sure many of you are listening. It's been, it's been a lot of change and it's been a lot of struggle and sort of wanting things to move forward, but sort of the brakes have been put on. And I think this is where you're going to start to see still some revisionary stuff, but you might start to really see that forward push, a welcomed forward push. Now, March 30th, 2025, Neptune is going to enter your Aries 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. Now, the last time Neptune was in Aries, you were not alive. It was about 1861. So it's been a bit since Neptune has been in Aries. But Neptune's been going through your Pisces 10th house of career and public recognition. Now, Neptune likes to dissolve things. It likes to, and Neptune rules, media and sort of, multi-dimension, and it's very watery, and like, it can be a good thing if you're a creative or you kind of want to tap into other realms or other ways of doing things, and sort of, Neptune doesn't lacks boundaries, essentially, for better or worse. And Neptune has been in that Pisces water sign, sort of creating, you know, I think, in my opinion, been a little bit more comfortable in Pisces, because I think Pisces is more indicative of helping Neptune do Neptunian things. But Neptune moving into Aries, I think we're going to feel this one. Neptune's moving into a fire sign, and not just any fire sign, a very initiating, courageous, get up and go, trailblazing sign. So these two are quite opposite in how they operate. But I think we're going to feel this collectively. And like I said, the last time this happened was 1861, which was actually the outbreak of the Civil War. It was, the Abe Lincoln time where, slavery started to really, the topic of slavery really came up. The United States really started to shift in its perspectives and ways of doing things. So I think globally we could really start to see the shifts. Is another war going to break out? I don't know. I'm still doing extensive research on that, but I think, many of us can see the writings on the wall. Now, Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces again. So again, 2025, we're getting sort of the taste, the wave, the shift of things. And, it will back off a little bit. And then 2026, which I will get to at the end of this, we're really going to start to see the push. So it's sort of like the planets give us a little like, hey, it's happening, and then it backs off, and then, hey, knock, knock, it's we're going here. So, did you prepare? Did you get ready? But I could blab on for hours about this, but for you specifically, Neptune entering the Aries 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. Again, it will join Saturn, which I'll get to, I think is going to help a lot of Gemini rising sort of dissolve old structures and old ways of doing things regarding how you relate to others, how you form groups, communities, and your goals, and create new patterns and new structures around your goal. Okay, so April 1st, 2025, remember, many weeks ago, I mentioned the Venus retrograde. So April 1st, 2025, Venus retrograde will go conjunct that North Node again. So remember February 1st, when Venus was in shadow conjunct the North Node? Venus is still retrograde here, but again, it's at its most exalted degree in your Pisces 10th house of career and public recognition. So this is a very strong Venus retrograde in this revisionary period regarding perhaps, what you really value, what you really love, or trying to sort of revise the things that you really value and love about your career and your public recognition, and where you want to maybe tie in themes of creativity or your self-expression, or what are those intangible life vision / mental dreams you have for yourself that maybe you're revising or reviewing in terms of, how do I really make this a tangible reality in my life? And so again, very opportunistic time with Venus exalted in Pisces, Venus at its most exalted degree conjunct the North Node in your 10th house of career and public recognition, which happens roughly every 18 and a half years. So again, even though this is a Venus retrograde, so again, we're still internalizing, we're still reviewing and revising, we're still not, directing the energy outward, yet it is still a very strong opportunistic time, in my opinion. Now, April 7th, 2025, Mercury goes direct at 26 degrees Pisces, your 10th house of career and public recognition, and will join the North Node on April 10th. This is important. Again, there's a detail to this that I think will be overlooked that I'll get into. But from roughly around April 7th through April 10th, give or take a day or two, again, we have some, by degree, some orbs to work with here. That Mercury was retrograde. You're reviewing and revising, what are your goals? What's your career, your public recognition? But in particular, how does it really support you, your identity, and how you want to show up in the world? And how is it supporting your home, family, property, real estate situation? Well, now Mercury goes direct. So it's sort of like you have the new plan, you have the new perspective, or you've sort of worked out the things that maybe you didn't see before or processed. And now Mercury goes direct, forward movement, conjunct that North Node in that 10th house of career, which definitely indicates a lot of you are going to be tying in the career themes in terms of this forward movement at that point of increase, right? So Mercury direct conjunct the North Node will also trine Mars in your Cancer second house of earned income and self-worth at 27 degrees, which could definitely indicate that whatever you were reviewing and revising in January 2025 regarding income, self-worth, goals, daily work, including side hustles, could play a part in this direct movement. So I think some of you might start to see that forward movement around maybe career, what's supporting your identity, how you want to show up in the world, a home, family, property, real estate situation. But in addition, you could see more positive, more ease, more flow involving a situation with your income and or self-worth. Then on April 12th, 2025, there will be a full moon in Libra at 23 degrees. This full moon is really illuminating your fifth house of creativity, self-expression, joy. The fifth house is really the house of joy, the place of joy, but it also includes children. So if you have children, you want children, if that's applicable to you, I'd also pay attention to this. Because yes, it's a full moon in this area, but it's really highlighting the 11th and 5th house axis, which is really your friends, your groups, your communities, your long-term goals, but also what brings you joy in life. What's going on with children, romance, creativity, self-expression. But more importantly, this full moon in particular is very interesting because as this full moon happens, Venus finally goes direct. And also rules this full moon. So Venus goes direct in that Pisces 10th house of career and public recognition, starts to move towards that North Node finally after it's been in a shadow period and a retrograde. So Venus goes direct and Venus rules this full moon that's really culminating the area of joy, pleasure, romance, creativity, self-expression. And it's just an interesting sort of forward green light where I think some of you might actually be feeling a lot more things clicking into place or things finally moving forward as you move through April. And some of you actually might start to feel relief, start to feel joy again through a lot of revising and all that stuff going on. So very, very interesting. And then we get to April 21st, 2025, and Saturn goes conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 26 degrees. So Saturn's been in your Pisces 10th house of career and public recognition. And for some of you that might be a frustrating experience because it's sort of like where you really want to move forward and take things off. Saturn sort of pumps the brakes, and it's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of discipline. And Saturn wants to reward. So, yes, Saturn rewards, but I think some of you could be feeling sort of like, why does career and public recognition the past year or two feel so heavy? And Saturn can cause that for some of us. But April 21st, Saturn goes conjunct the North Node in your 10th house of career and public recognition. And so this could be a turning point for some of you where it's sort of like, usually when Saturn gets to sort of the last decan or sort of those last 10 degrees, it's gone through the first 20. Things start to sort of wrap up, start to finish up. In a way where some of you might start to see the reward, and with it going conjunct the North Node at this point of increase, it could definitely increase the discipline, the hard work, the perseverance. Some of you might look back on the past year or two and see how much hard work and perseverance you've really done, but some of you might also start to see the rewards come in or feel that shift, especially with Jupiter sort of starting to move out of that first house and into that second house of earned income, which I will get to. But I think this is where a lot of you might start to see the actual external stuff happen, or the shifts actually be like a tangible experience where you can start to see, okay, like the next couple months are going to unfold this way. But Saturn rules your 8th and your 9th. So if you have your midheaven in your Capricorn 8th or your Aquarius 9th, it could definitely tie in additional increasing themes around career, business, and public recognition. So definitely look to your natal chart for that. But all in all, this could be tying in 9th house themes, which would be travel, spirituality, continuing education, teaching, writing, publishing, and or 8th house themes, which would be your transformational work, your investments, your assets, your debt, your loans, other people's resources, including your partner's resources, tying into those increasing themes regarding career, business, and public recognition. Now, we end the month, or I'm ending the month, with April 24th, 2025, when Venus direct. Again, we've had this long journey with this Venus shadow, Venus retrograde, and this is now when Venus is direct, actually conjunct the North Node at 26 degrees Pisces. So this is a exalted Pisces, very strong, well-resourced. Venus in Pisces wants to have a good time. And Venus rules that 5th house of joy for Gemini risings. So I think, again, this could help that Saturnian work and discipline aspect with the North Node going on this month. So Venus comes along, goes conjunct that North Node. It's a green light. It's a go. It's point of increase. It's in a very visible career, public recognition place in your chart. So I think April is really could be a definite changing, a huge month of change for Gemini risings. Like, I think a lot is going to shift after the eclipses and things start moving forward, trining certain areas, ruling that full moon in that 5th house of joy. So definitely an interesting month in April, but again, come back, listen to my monthlies where I get into more detail on that, because this is very important for Gemini risings. Okay, and now when we get into the month of May, I'm going to skip to May 18th, 2025, where Jupiter is been in your first house of self, body, appearance, identity. Jupiter in Gemini, although Jupiter is a planet of good luck, fortune, expansion, abundance, all that, it is in detriment in Gemini. And detriment is a big, scary word that a lot of people think is horrible. But all detriment means to me, personally, this is my opinion, is when the planet is overdoing it. It's overexerting where it doesn't necessarily have to. And so this is nothing new. Jupiter's been going through your Gemini first house since mid 2024 at this point. However, given, if we zoom out, we have some perspective, given everything that's happened with the retrogrades, the north nodes, especially in that 10th house of career, public recognition. This is when we get into June and things have shifted. Things have definitely changed. But Jupiter at 25 degrees Gemini in your first house of self will then square the north node in your Pisces 10th house of career and your 4th house of home and family. Now, pay attention if you have specifically, because this could be very, very important. If you have your ascendant around 25 degrees Gemini, and consequently your descendant in your 7th house of partnership will also be around 25 degrees Sagittarius, pay very, very close attention to this transit, because Jupiter will be squaring the nodes in your 10th house of career, your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. But Jupiter rules your 10th house of career and public recognition. And it also rules your 7th house of partnership, whether it's personal or professional. So this is when I think we've had all the retrogrades. We've had them go conjunct the north node in that 10th house of career. Now the ruler of your career and the ruler of your partnership starts to square that north node in your career and public recognition area. But more importantly, it will be at a north bending. So this is adding an element of increase in the area of you. So I actually think, as a lot of Gemini risings, again, it depends on your personal placements, but if you get into May, a lot of you might start to see increasing themes around you in your career, your business, your public recognition, also personal and professional relationships, probably more externally. I think this is where like things might really start to shift. But again, these are individual transits, but they're all part of a major story playing out. And I think the importance of, as you get into end of May with this square, really tying in a point of increase around you, how you show up in the world, career, public recognition, and partnership after everything that's happened the past couple months. We have to keep in mind Jupiter is going to move into your 2nd house of earned income and self-worth, where it is no longer in detriment, it is in exaltation. So this is a very strong, happy, faithful Jupiter in the area of finance for you. So I think putting it into perspective, what major changes are happening in April, May that are going to set you up for success and allow you to expand your finances and or self-worth. Now on May 24th, 2025, Saturn will now enter your Aries 11th house. So that heaviness, that Saturnian heaviness and discipline and hard work is now moving out of the area, or starting to move out of that 10th house of career and public recognition, which a lot of you, I think, will, welcome wholeheartedly. But Saturn on May 24th, entering your Aries 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long term goals, is going to start tying in, yes, your long term goals, yes, who you surround yourself with, but Saturn rules that 8th house and 9th house. So I think, especially if you have your midheaven again in Capricorn or Aquarius, long term goals and careers is quite obvious. However, it's going to tie in themes of sort of what's your goals, what's your social network, how can you restructure that, how can you strengthen that in ways where, you can either continue, increase your knowledge, increase your writing, increase your travel, increase your investments, your assets, your resources, and or transformational work. But don't forget, Neptune just entered this area. So this adds a totally different element where, yes, Saturn enters Aries, but it starts to join briefly with Neptune. And you have Saturn, the planet of structure and boundaries and hard work, with the planet of dissolving or illusion. And so this is where, for Gemini risings, I think a lot of you might start to dissolve outdated structures that are really not serving you regarding friends, groups, communities, and your long term goals. But in particular, dissolving old patterns or structures regarding spirituality, your education, your knowledge, your beliefs, travel, how you invest, your perspective on money, perspective on resources. Some of you might change that within groups, communities, your social network. So this could be a very profound experience that's starting to unravel for Gemini risings as you're sort of really increasing the focus on career and public recognition for quite some time. So overall, I would pay close attention to roughly May through August of 2025, where Neptune and Aries will be in this fire sign, this new territory where you could really collectively, I think globally and collectively, we could really start to see the dissolving of structures in a fire sign having the potential to burn it all down and sort of trailblaze into something. June, I think, is going to be a very good month for Gemini risings regarding perspective on finances, material possessions, and or self-worth, because June 9th, 2025, Jupiter enters your Cancer second house of earned income, material possessions, and self-worth, where Jupiter is exalted. And Jupiter is the planet of abundance, good fortune, expansion, and with the essential dignity, the essential dignity that it's gaining through its exaltation, it's gaining strength, it's gaining resources. This is a Jupiter that has a lot of faith, that has the ability to expand more. And don't forget, when Jupiter enters Cancer, it will start to trine or positively aspect your daily work, your health, and it will also positively aspect and trine your 10th house of career and public recognition. Jupiter also rules your 10th house of career and public recognition, tying in themes to your earned income and your self-worth. So again, it depends on your personal placements. I'm not here to immorally tell you everything's going to be amazing, you're going to be a millionaire. But these influences are, in my opinion, better than the influences over the past couple years, where I think some of you might really start to get ahead, be able to expand these areas, for the better, hopefully. So again, look at your personal placements, look at what's, interacting with it. It's definitely going to change the situation. But overall, generally speaking, I really like Jupiter in the second house of earned income, especially in its exaltation in Cancer. Now, June 15th, 2025, Jupiter in Cancer will square Saturn in your Aries 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So this is sort of the moment where Jupiter enters its area of exaltation, wants to expand, wants to create abundance, particularly in the area of finances, but it squares Saturn, where it's sort of like a checkpoint or like a hip check to say, okay, before we really start to expand this area, what needs to change, right? Squares are action and change. And Saturn might want you to change maybe who you surround yourself with, your groups, your communities, strengthen your long-term goals. But again, it's with Neptune. So this square to me could definitely involve Saturn telling, communicating with Jupiter and basically saying, hey, before we want to create abundance and expand the area of finances, what old structures or patterns regarding goals or who you surround yourself with needs to dissolve and rebuild in order to really continue expanding in this area. But again, Saturn rules that 9th and 8th, so it could be sort of how you invest, your perspective on money, your beliefs, your knowledge. So there is, it is great, but, Jupiter moving into Cancer, but it is, Saturn's there to say, hey, one little, we need to hip check you for a second to pause, pump the brakes before, we move. We don't want to create a ton of money or create a bunch of abundance if we don't have the vessel, the capacity, or the container to hold it, to continue it. So it's just some perspective as we go through 2025. Now, June 25th, 2025, there will be a new moon in Cancer at 4 degrees, conjunct Jupiter at 3 degrees. So I definitely think this plays a part in the area of finance, because this new moon comes along June 25th in the area of earned income, self-worth, in the midst of this square, and says, okay, what change or action are you taking that now, we can create a new beginning or a new chapter that plays out roughly over the next 5 or 6 months. Then on June 29th, 2025, Mercury enters shadow at 3 degrees of Leo through July 18th. So June 29th through July 18th, Mercury will be in shadow. Again, Mercury is your ruling planet. It rules your body, yourself, and your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So some of you might go through a little revisionary period or gaining some contextual clues, particularly around June 29th through July 18th, involving sort of you, your home, your family, property, real estate, but in a way where it's sort of like what's going on in your immediate environment. What's going on with communication, any short distance travel, relationships with siblings. So I think there's been a lot going on in the area of finance, career, long-term goals, who you surround yourself with. But as we get into the end of June through July, I think things might shift into maybe getting back to family themes or time with family. Or, relationships with siblings or communication or sort of taking care of, the everyday mundane tasks. And as we get into July, specifically July 7th, 2025, this could be a very big moment for a lot of Gemini risings because Uranus enters your Gemini 1st house of self, body, appearance, and identity. Again, Uranus will enter this area, retrograde back into your Taurus 12th house. But Uranus going through the 1st house can definitely cause some rapid changes and change, rebellion, innovation to you, your body, your identity, really how you show up in the world. This is an angular house, so whatever change you're sort of feeling, or you're getting the beginning stages of these. This is like the very baby beginning stages. It can cause a lot of change to career, public recognition, home, family, property, real estate, and will definitely need to be balanced and integrated within a partnership. So again, very beginning stages, but something to think about because Uranus, moves pretty slowly. So this will take a long time, but something to think about. And then July 18th, 2025, like I mentioned, through the end of June, a little bit into July, that Mercury shadow period. July 18th, Mercury finally goes retrograde at 15 degrees Leo. This is the third house. So the third house does rule over your computer, your phone, your laptop, your car. So definitely take care of any maintenance or pay attention to communication, double check emails. Typically, Mercury retrogrades get that bad reputation of, oh, your communication problems, which it definitely can, but because it's happening in a house that rules communication and all forms of communication, definitely pay attention. But also I would pay attention to any communication with siblings, family members, and your own communication around this time. Double check if people are perceiving what the message you're trying to send. Double check text, phone, plans, etc., especially in that third house where you run errands and you do appointments and your daily neighborhood. So just be sure of that. Look out for any potential delays or mitigate any delays by double checking. Then on July 20th, 2025 to roughly July 21st. So a couple day period, July 20th, July 21st, give or take a day or two. There's this very interesting situation going on where Mars will go conjunct the South Node in your Virgo fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. While simultaneously, Venus in your Gemini first house is going to square the North Node in your Pisces 10th house of career at the North bending, which is a point of increase. So Venus is at a North bending at this point of increase of change, while Mars is at this point of decrease or releasing or letting go simultaneously. So Mars could be releasing or letting go something regarding home, family, property, and real estate. But more specifically, Mars rules at 11th and 6th house. So it could be releasing something regarding a goal, a social network, daily work, side business, coworkers, health routines, it looks like there's some sort of release going on, hopefully to serve your home environment, relationships with family for better. But you could definitely be like releasing anything that's no longer serving you regarding health, routine, work, goals, friends, groups, communities. Or it could just be, it's happening in your fourth house of home and family. So it could just be very home and family themed. However, Venus is at that point of increase in your first house. So Venus could be causing change and increasing themes of, fifth house themes and 12th house themes. So fifth house themes is joy, pleasure, fun, romance, children, and 12th house themes is really like your subconscious, your, mental process, your dreams. So you could definitely be sort of maybe releasing something that's no longer serving you to increase more joy, more fun, more romance, more pleasure in that first house that fuels your appearance, that fuels your identity and your body. August 11th, 2025, that Mercury finally goes direct at 4 degrees Leo in your third house. So some of you Again, third house is communication, all forms of communication, phone, laptop, car, transportation, relationships with siblings, your neighborhood, sort of your day to day, running errands, appointments. And so Mercury going direct here and it ruling your body, your home, family, property, and real estate could definitely sort of ease that forward movement around those themes. Communication, paperwork, appointments, errands, getting things taken care of for your own individual needs, but also home, family, property, and real estate themes. Then on August 12th, 2025, Venus will go conjunct Jupiter at 14 degrees Cancer, where again, Jupiter is exalted in that Cancer second house of earned income and self worth. But Venus joins the party, and Venus is the other benefic. This adds another level of positivity for sure. You have the two benefics joining in your second house of earned income and self worth, and one of which is exalted. So, pretty good for me, generally speaking. But I think, Jupiter rules the career and the partnership, and Venus rules your mind, your mental, the mental aspect, the more subconscious aspect of your chart, and your fifth house of joy. So I actually think August could be a good time to have fun, to seek pleasure, to self express, be creative, focus on mental health, like positive mental health, start shifting into more joy and more positivity to positively create more abundance and expansion to your career, your public recognition, and your partnerships. August 23rd, 2025, there will be a new moon in your Virgo fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. Now, I like this new moon. I'm not talking about every new moon or full moon, but I like this new moon in particular because we're really ending the month of August where there's this new beginning, this new opportunity in the area of home, family, property, and real estate, but it will quincunx Saturn in your Aries 11th house for the first time. 11th house, friends, groups, communities, and long term goals. Now, the quincunx is not a major aspect. This is sort of, you might feel this in the background, but I think it's worth noting because this new moon is like a new beginning or a new chapter some of you might want to start regarding home, family, property, and real estate themes, but it might require an uncomfortable adjustment to your goals, who you surround yourself with. In addition to Saturn ruling that eighth house, like the new chapter might require you to make an uncomfortable adjustment to your investments, your assets, your resources, your partner's resources. So some of you might be starting something new regarding those fourth house themes, but you're looking at finances, or you're looking at your education or teaching or writing, whatever it may be specifically in your chart, and how that is sort of that adjustment is going to support not only home and family situation, but also support your long-term goals and sort of who you surround yourself with. So September 1st, 2025, Saturn is actually going to retrograde back into your Pisces 10th house of career and public recognition. So this is sort of tying up loose ends. This is nothing new. I mean, you've dealt with Saturn through your 10th house of career and public recognition. Saturn's just backing up here, giving you an opportunity to, tie up loose ends or do any last minute restructuring or work to the area of career, public recognition. I'm not too worried about it, but again, look at your personal placements to see if you have anything here. But it could bring you back to Saturnian themes, or Saturn ruled houses like your ninth of travel, education, teaching, publishing, eighth house, investments, assets, resources, that might have come up in May of 2025 to sort of revisit or maybe adjust as needed. Then September 7th, 2025, there will be a full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees 22 minutes. Now, I normally don't give the minutes, but there's a particular detail that I have a close eye on, where this full moon lunar eclipse in your Pisces 10th house of career and public recognition is definitely a full moon on steroids, illuminating career, public recognition, culminating something heavily, illuminating potential changes in this area as well. But it's at 15 degrees 22 minutes. Now, the last full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, again, 10th house of career and public recognition, Saturn was at 15 degrees 16 minutes here. So I'm keeping a close eye on this because, again, Saturn just retrograded back into Pisces with this, again, lunar eclipse in this area September 7th, 2025. So it's sort of like what's going on with Saturn being at what's going on with Saturn being 6 minutes away from where the last eclipse happened here in this 10th house of career and public recognition. And with it backing up again, within days of this area, it's sort of like, what's Saturn trying to wrap up here? And again, Saturn rules at 8th house of transformation, investments, assets, resources, including your partner's resources, if applicable. Also, the travel, the knowledge, the belief, the teaching, the publishing. So sort of like, what is Saturn sort of, I look at this and I could be wrong. But I have my close eye on this in terms of what is Saturn really trying to wrap up regarding career and public recognition. That could be kind of fully kind of coming to a close and culminating towards the end of 2025. However, keep in mind, this time around in September 2025, where this eclipse is happening in your career and public recognition area, the ruler of this eclipse this time around, Jupiter, is exalted in your Cancer second house of earned income. So I definitely think the conditions are going to be totally different, hopefully a lot better this time in 2025 compared to September 2024, where maybe there was more tension or more change sort of occurring in that area. Then on September 21st, 2025, there will be a new moon partial solar eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees in your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So again, we get to September 2025. What's going on with career, public recognition that's really culminating, that's also creating this potential new chapter, this new beginning that you really get to set in motion regarding home, family, property, and real estate. What's even more interesting is the ruler of this new moon eclipse regarding home, family, property, and real estate will be in mutual reception with Venus. So it's sort of like Venus is in Mercury's home and Mercury is in Venus home. So it's like they've swapped homes. But Venus will have triplicity by essential dignity. So triplicity is sort of like when a planet has friends and support to help Venus out. And so you could look to the Venus areas of your chart to maybe support this new chapter or support any shifts or changes that are happening around this time and initiate that new energy. And for you, it's that 5th house of joy, creativity, self-expression, fun, and that 12th house of subconscious. So 12th house is also like where we sleep, where we meditate, where we find time alone. So it could be a really supportive time for you to rest, recharge, meditate, take some time, time for solitude, find something you really enjoy that brings you, creativity, pleasure, etc. October, I'm actually going to skip over a lot of October and just get to what I think are the more overarching important points. Specifically on October 20th, 2025, Mercury will enter shadow in your Scorpio sixth house of daily work, health, routines, and coworkers through November 9th. So October 20th through November 9th, Mercury will be in shadow in the area of daily work, coworkers, health, routine. Mercury rules yourself, your body, also your home, family, property, and real estate. So pay attention to sort of what's going on at home, what changes have happened, especially after the eclipses that have happened here for some of you, and how that has maybe shifted sort of your work, your health, your routines, how you show up in the world. What's interesting about this though is that as Mercury enters shadow, it's going to join Mars in Scorpio. Now, Mercury in Scorpio is a different Mercury, and Mars in Scorpio is a different Mars. There are two types of Mars regarding rulership. You have Mars rules Aries, and it also rules Scorpio. Mars in Aries is very direct. Once again, it depends if it's retrograde, but basically, I'm generalizing, but Mars in Aries is very, um, you know, I, I want to go. I want to make it happen. I want to do. Mars in Scorpio wants to think, wants to find the solution, find the way, especially when no one else can. Mars in Scorpio, and especially if you have Mars in Scorpio in your natal chart, you will also have a Mars return, which is also important. It's creating sort of a new 2.5-year cycle regarding work, health, routines, also goals, and who you surround yourself with. But Mars in Scorpio is a very it will find the way. Oh, it will. And because Mercury enters shadow, it's sort of like what contextual clues are coming up around you, home, family, property and real estate. But how has it affected your work, your health, your routine, or vice versa? Where Mercury in Scorpio is a deep Mercury. It wants to skip the small talk and it's still curious, but it wants to go deeper. It wants to peel back more of the layers. It wants to have more deeper conversations. So some of you might actually be having deeper conversations regarding something going on with yourselves, something going on with home, family, property, real estate, coworkers as well, what's going on at work, something going on with a health situation is also possible. Again, look, it really depends on your natal placements, but I'm just throwing it out there. So if you're listening, you can sort of pick and choose the specifics. What story is sort of playing out, especially showing up in the area of daily work, health, and routines. But Mercury joining Mars here is very like, what communication or information is coming up that is allowing you to get to the bottom of something regarding work, social network, long-term goals. Very, very interesting. So again, this is a very strong and deep beginning to a shadow period that I think many will look over. But I think in terms of a shadow period, giving those contextual clues to what you're going to review and revise when Mercury goes retrograde, there's probably going to be a lot of contextual clues that are deeper and beneath the surface. So look out for that. Then on October 22nd, 2025, Neptune retrogrades back into your Pisces 10th house of career and public recognition. So Neptune, gets out of that 11th, that Aries 11th house, goes back into the area of career for you. Again, I don't think it's anything major. It depends if you have any personal placements here, particularly if you have your midheaven at the last couple degrees of your Pisces 10th house. But generally speaking, this is just an opportunity to sort of tie up any dissolution or changes to sort of the career and the public recognition. But I think more importantly, it's going to give you a little breather, a little break to the start of dissolving old structures, old patterns, old beliefs with, friends, groups, communities, and your long term goals. November is where, again, these outer planets kind of continue to tiptoe back into their previous area. So, November 7th, 2025, Uranus will retrograde back into your Taurus 12th house. Again, nothing new. However, this is the 12th house of the subconscious where we have limiting beliefs, where we sort of the self undoing. It's also our dreams, our life vision, things that we don't necessarily advertise with the world. It's going back to that mind body axis. So it could give you another opportunity to sort of innovate or change any mental patterns that affect your work, your health, or your routines. Now, November 9th, a few days later, that is when Mercury actually goes retrograde at 6 degrees Sagittarius in your 7th house of marriage, partnership, including personal and professional. Now, Mercury cycles typically do this thing where, for example, December 2024, Mercury went direct at 6 degrees Sagittarius, whereas now Mercury goes retrograde at 6 degrees Sagittarius almost a year later. So there could be partnerships, again, could be personal, professional, that sort of loop back around. You might be reminiscing, you might have a different perspective compared to December 2024 versus now of something that maybe brought you back or is playing out in the area of partnership. So something to keep in mind. I don't think it's the biggest deal. I mean, Mercury typically does this with the cycles and the degrees, but if I see it, I say it. You might be going through something regarding partnership that you could be kind of coming full circle back around to in November of 2025. But regardless, Mercury goes retrograde. It rules at 4th house of home, family, property, real estate, and yourselves. So, you could be starting that revisionary process of anything that came up the past couple weeks regarding those themes. Now, November 29th, 2025, Mercury goes direct at 20 degrees Scorpio. So, again, this is, remember when it entered shadow, it went conjunct Mars. And sort of the contextual clues or the situations regarding, your social network, your long term goals, your daily work, your health, your routine was a little bit of a deeper Mercury. And a deeper Mars. And now Mercury goes direct November 29th, kind of creating that forward movement. Now, keep in mind, this is after a new moon in Scorpio, which happened on November 20th. So it's sort of like you get this new beginning, this new perspective, sort of moving forward that could play out over the next 5 or 6 months, where in addition to that Mercury is moving forward, giving you that green light. And that's happening in the area of, your daily work, your 9 to 5, your coworkers, your health, and your routines. And we're ending 2025 where there's going to be a full moon in your Gemini first house of self, body, appearance, identity on December 4th. So, December 4th, 2025, this full moon is illuminating this first and seventh house axis of your own needs versus the needs of others. So, definitely going into December, especially with the holiday season for many, Gemini rising specifically, really going in with that perspective of taking care of your body, taking care of your own needs, and balancing that with the needs of others. But more specifically, this full moon at 13 degrees is going to square the north and south node in your 10th house of career and your 4th house of home and family. So, this basically is briefly, again, the moon moves quickly. So, briefly, on the day of December 4th, it will create this mutable grand cross. The good news with a mutable grand cross is that it's adaptable, it's flexible. So, balancing your needs with the needs of others, but also where you can create any necessary change or adaptability to your career, home, and family. However, because this is creating a mutable grand cross in your angular houses, sometimes it can be too adaptable where it creates too much change. Again, it's just for the day, so just be aware of, wanting to drop all the balls or this tendency to want to change everything when you may not have to with this full moon. So again, I think with this, especially because it's happening in your first house and really illuminating the first house of you versus the other, you versus your partnerships, I would say, mark this down. I would note December 4th, give or take a day or two, and just note to pause. Take a pause, take a break, really analyze like if something's coming up, if there are changes, if there are, the adaptability needed around this time, to take a pause, take a break, and see what really needs change versus what really can stay instead of, throwing it all out or adapting every single area. You may not need to. But again, it's brief, but I think it's worth mentioning because it's creating a grand cross. And for Gemini rising specifically, it's really highlighting the four major areas of your chart and thus your life. So definitely look to see if you have any personal placements around 13 degrees of Gemini, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Virgo. Those will definitely flavor and play a part and tie in additional themes to this configuration during this day. And December 15th, 2025, Mars is going to enter your Capricorn 8th house of transformation, investments, assets, other people's resources, including a partner's resources. So, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, but we also have Jupiter in the opposite house in your Cancer second house of earned income. So we have Mars exalted in a money house for you, and we have Jupiter exalted in a money house for you, but they're opposing each other. So Jupiter is sort of wanting to expand your earned income, and Mars wants to expand maybe the investments, the assets, the resources, the transformational work. But more importantly, these two planets in exaltation really heating things up in the area of finance as you're closing out 2025, entering 2026, is very much tying in themes of, yes, finances, but in regards to your career, your goals, your daily work, and your partnerships, either personal or professional. Those are the other areas of the chart that those planets are tying in to the area of finance, but also to this exaltation. So the other reason why I mention this is last year in 2024, we had a Mars retrograde throughout the most of December of 2024. And Mars was also retrograding back into its area of fall in your second house of earned income. And we also had Jupiter in your Gemini first house in its area of detriment. So we are in a very, very different situation the end of 2025 regarding the planet of expansion and the planet of action. And for you, it's a very different situation tying in the area of finances as you close out 2025. The other thing I like to mention about Mars and Capricorn is that Mars and Capricorn, because you're talking about the planet of action and in its place of exaltation, it can really, and I've noticed this collectively, it can really increase the energy. So, again, I think December of 2024, collectively, I mean, Mars is not, it's going to be in its place of fall. So, the holidays for many of us are going to feel very different. I don't think there's going to be a lot of get up and go energy for many. I mean, it depends on personal placements and interactions with your natal chart. But I think, the end of 2025 for many is going to feel more of like a busier holiday season, a more get up and go. One thing I have noticed when Mars enters Capricorn, people can be prone to over exercising, joint problems. If you're prone to joint problems, mobility problems, definitely pay attention to that. Mars rules your sixth house of health. So, December 2025, try not to overdo or, overexert the area of health. Definitely take care of yourself. But don't overdo it to the point where Mars and Capricorn can cause exhaustion for a lot of people. So again, I'm just emphasizing it because it is typically a holiday season for most of us. Again, very different holiday season from December 2024. But I think December of 2025, there is a lot more, the energy is more, has the ability to expand more. Again, it depends on the area of chart. But for you, Gemini rising, it's really, these two planets are in their exaltation in your money houses. So I think December 2025, you're gonna be in an entirely different financial situation. Many of you, compared to December 2024. So I think it's important to discuss 2025 with the perspective of 2026. 2025, in my opinion, is sort of like the next wave, the next shift. Really 2025 and 2026. Sort of like what I was seeing for 2020. Again, I didn't quite predict a pandemic necessarily, but I could definitely see some gnarliness and prepared accordingly ahead of time, luckily. But I'm looking at 2025, 2026 as definitely like the second wave, another major shift. It's not going to be the same as 2020, obviously. It's going to be very different, have very different themes, but it's definitely sort of like the next wave, the next chapter of opportunity and change for us. So one thing to keep in mind is that in 2026, Jupiter will enter Leo. And for you, this is the third house of sort of your daily environment, your communication, exchanging information, siblings, short distance travel. But the important thing to note is that in 2024, 2025, Jupiter had these periodic squares with Saturn. And Jupiter wants to expand, Saturn wants to pump the brakes. And so these squares were particularly frustrating for many of us. But this time, with Jupiter entering Leo and Saturn making its way into Aries, these are both fire signs, which means even if by degree Saturn and Jupiter don't trine each other, they will be in sort of this trine configuration by sign, by co-presence, right? Not co-presence, but by sign. So they're sort of out of this square configuration, which is more tense, and they're entering more of a trine configuration, which is more typically positive. Things happen more naturally. Will it be roses and butterflies? Not necessarily, but in terms of being able to expand and create abundance versus pump the brakes and create a stronger foundation and create more discipline, they will be in a configuration where being able to slow down to expand more might be more positive, might happen more naturally. So I will take that over a square. Now, the other thing I mentioned in the 2025 with Uranus entering your Gemini first house of self, body, appearance, and identity, definitely look out for innovation and change to, who you are and how you want to show up and those kinds of things. But however, when Uranus enters Gemini, I believe back in 2026, it will start to trine Pluto in Aquarius, potentially creating rapid changes and transformation to the areas of Gemini and Aquarius collectively. So look out for rapid changes and innovation to communication, technology, humanitarian efforts, and groups, communities, those kinds of things. However, for you individually, this is creating rapid change and transformation to the area of you, your body, appearance, identity, how you show up in the world, and your beliefs, your knowledge, your wisdom, travel, writing, speaking, teaching, those kinds of areas in particular, if those are areas that you work in or you want to sort of move in. So I think there's going to be, this trine configuration could cause more rapid acceleration of change in these areas individually and collectively. I mean, collectively, I think we could really start to see old patterns dying off, new technology, new ways of communicating, new information. I also have my eye on more community based businesses and living situation sort of increasing with these two planets moving very slowly in these houses that are trying each other. In addition to the Saturn Neptune conjunction, which will happen again in 2026, but it will actually happen at the Aries point, which is 0 degrees of Aries. It is a critical degree, it is a sensitive point. So this adds an element of intensity or sensitivity to this conjunction involving the dissolving of structures, the dissolving of old ways that really don't work anymore, in addition to the trine between Uranus and Saturn really giving the opportunity to create a lot of rapid change and transformation to technology, communication, and society. And lastly, the North Node will move into Aquarius, and consequently, that South Node will move into Leo, highlighting the axis of me versus them, the individual needs versus the group needs collectively. But for you, that North Node will move into the ninth house of spirituality, continuing education, higher education, teaching, publishing. Um, so, and that South Node will be in the third house. So, definitely highlighting travel houses, learning houses, exchanging information, writing, communicating. Very, very interesting. And how that might tie in collectively to sort of the individual need versus the collective need, and how that maybe ties into what you do, especially if your midheaven is in your Aquarius ninth house. With that being said, it is an incredible time to be alive with all of you.